6284. And Mr. Dixon, would you go ahead and introduce the file for us, please?
Okay. Case 6284, an application for conditional use for a country inn and banquet facility. The site is located at 3730 Deal Road, Tonytown, Maryland, on property zone A, Agricultural District in Election District 1. By Scott A. Fisher, Code of Public Local Laws and Ordinances, Section 158.070E1T. A site visit is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, December 16, 2020, at approximately 9:15 a.m. In the file of this matter, we have the following documents. There are comment memos from various state and local agencies in response to Joe Vance's request to them. There's a response from Tom Harris, permits and inspections. Comments: accessibility will be addressed during the site plan process. A change of use building permit will be required for any existing buildings used for the country inn or event venue. A building permit will be required for any new structures, including any tents. Thomas Harris. There are the site minutes for the board members. There is a December 4th, 2020 letter from Linda D. Eisenberg, Secretary to the Planning Commission. After having reviewed the information contained in the attached analysis, the facts as presented in the application, the relevant portions of the plan, and in accordance with the provisions in the land use article, this conditional use request, if granted, is consistent with the policies, timing of the implementation of the plan, timing of development, timing of rezoning, development patterns, land uses, and densities or intensities. There is a December 8th, 2020 memo from Hannah Weber, planning technician. The above referenced BZA case has been reviewed for consistency with the policies and recommendations contained in the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019, the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan, and other functional plans. The staff finding is that this request is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019 and would not have an adverse effect on the current use of the property. There is a newspaper ad for this case, December 7th, 2020. Hearing notice was posted November 23rd, 2020 by zoning inspector Anastasia. There's a response to Joe Vance's request from Matt Shipley, Carroll County Environmental Health Department. Proposed use may not be acceptable unless it is demonstrated that there is an adequate water supply and adequate area for the installation of an initial or two replacement septic systems for the proposed use and any existing uses of this property. There's a response from Christopher P. Hahn, Bureau Chief, Resource Management. No comments. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from Jay Voigt, Zoning Administrator. Site plan approved by the Bureau of Development Review will be required. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from Deborah Bowers, Program Manager, Ag Land Preservation Program. Comments not in agricultural land preservation per DB. Joe Vance sent a notice of public hearing to the applicant, adjoining property owners and interested parties, November 17th, 2020. Then there's the application for conditional use for country inn and banquet facility. there are some, I see. An aerial photograph. Let's see, 1, 2. There's a number of aerial photographs. And there's also a document from CLSI. I would ask that the file be entered into evidence.
Do I have a motion to enter into evidence?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of moving the file into evidence, raise your right hand. Okay, we will go ahead and enter that into evidence. Before we get started here this morning, let me go through the procedures. What we'll do is we'll have the applicant go ahead and present their case this morning. And they will have the opportunity to call witnesses that they want or just present their case. Then the public will have the opportunity to ask them questions of their testimony and only of their testimony. There will be a point in time for anyone else to weigh in on the case and provide their own testimony at a later time in the hearing. After the applicant has presented their case, then anyone from the public can offer their comments on this. Then there will be a summation by the applicant, and then the board will go ahead and make a decision. Before we get started, if you plan on giving testimony today, I need you to raise your right hand and take the oath. If you could just raise your right hand, please. Is anybody on the call going to offer testimony? Yeah. Okay. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So, Mr. Schaefer, I see you're on the line. Is it right to assume that you're the legal counsel for the applicants?
No, it's not, Mr. Chairman. I am here representing a neighboring property owner, Lois Guyton and Kim Marcus. Both of whom I think are on the call because I talked to them at 8:45 and they were set up. But it's anticipated that I will probably do almost all of the talking. If they were to testify, obviously, and if they are on the call, then they would take the oath at that time.
Okay. I jumped to a conclusion there, Mr. Schaefer. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Mr. Bale, I have a question, if I may.
Okay.
Are the Millers involved in this in any way? Do any of the Millers plan to testify today? Maybe Mr. Schaefer, I don't know if you know.
I do not know. I'm only here on behalf of Lois Guyton and Kim Marcus. So no, I don't know anything about the Millers.
And have they been identified as as caller one that's showing on my screen? Your clients?
Let's find out. Caller 1, can you identify yourself?
Yes, this is Chris Tomlinson.
Wait.
Okay, so we don't have the Millers on the line. So that if we don't have them, then you don't have a conflict. Is that what you're getting at, Lisa?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it appears that we do not have an issue with that. Before we get started, let me go through a couple of things. If you're not speaking, please turn your microphone off because there can be feedback, and the recording can only record one voice at a time. So that would be very beneficial. The other thing is before you speak, please state your name, address, and occupation. And for the record, please spell your last name. So with that, we will go ahead and turn it over to the Fishers and let them go ahead and explain to us what they need here with this request.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morgan Fisher.
I'm Scott Fisher. Good morning. Fisher, F-I-S-C-H-E-R. We live at 3730 Deal Road in Tawnytown.
We are Bright Day Farm. We wanted to thank everybody for this opportunity today. In early March, we had our third baby, but in April, when I intended to go back to work, I lost my job due to COVID. I don't have a job anymore, so I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so this will be like a way for me to be home with our children and just make some income. But before we get into like some logistics and things, I just want to give you a little backstory of our farm. We moved here about 5 years ago. It was very run down and it wasn't taken care of at all. We had about 8 roll-off dumpsters of trash, and buildings were collapsed, and it was just horrible. But we're cleaning it up and it looks wonderful. We built a beautiful chicken coop out of the old house that we had to tear down. It's really adorable. Painted the barn, so much more, like endless amounts of time and sweat into it. So I'll let Scott take over and say some things.
So just to add to that, I think the point is we love Carroll County and want to keep it the way it is. And we feel like we brought this farm back to life. It was really just run down, and our intention is to just keep the countryside intact and the way it's always been. I guess with that, the overall, intention of the Country Inn is not to have some huge establishment or anything like that. It's very, we feel like minimal impact. We want to have people be able to come out, enjoy the farm. In the world of COVID, this would be an outside venue, so there's no one going in the barn. It would be, they can enjoy the barn, take pictures in front of it, and enjoy the farm, I guess, atmosphere. People would be able to, on a limited scale, have a retirement party, or if they want to have a wedding. That's really our intention. Again, just small scale. It allows my wife to make some income and still stay home with the kids. We also thought of it as a benefit to other people in the community from an economic perspective. There's going to be people that will cater at times, so it provides other jobs for people. We don't have a catering license, and we don't want to build any structures, so we will have somebody come out and put a tent up, and that'll provide jobs for people. And we just think that it's a benefit to everybody, and it's something that we would do from like May 1st to October 1st. It's just an opportunity. We just think it kind of fits into the time, I guess, right now with COVID and having people have to socially distance. And, we understand from talking to different agencies and departments, like we have to have less than 100 people, and we can only have like, I think 10 a year or something, 10 or 12, I think was the maximum. So it's not, from our perspective, it's very limited, and we're excited about it. We just want to share the farm with everybody. And, we love Carroll County. We went to North Carroll High School. We've lived here our whole life. Like Morgan said, we moved here 5 years ago. I think that's it. It's pretty,
Yeah.
I feel like it's pretty straightforward what we're trying to do.
So again, we just want to thank everyone, and we appreciate your time this morning. Is there any questions or?
Okay, that concludes your testimony. Is that what you're saying? Okay, at this point, does anyone have any questions of Fisher's testimony? Members of the public? Mr. Schaefer?
Thank you. Clark Schaefer's 73 East Main Street, Westminster, on behalf of Lois Guyton and Kim Marcus, who live or who have owned property next door to this property. Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, how large will your parking area be?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
So, we're roughly looking at about 63 feet wide and about 200 feet long.
And you've drawn a rectangle on the plat or sketch, which is an orthographic photo that you submitted with your application. Is that the 63 by 200 foot area?
Yes.
And that's approximate. Okay. Are you planning on paving that or putting gravel on it?
No.
What kind of surface is there now?
Grass?
Is it an open field now?
Yes.
Now you described this as a farm. How large is the property?
9.86 acres.
Okay. Do you use it for farming purposes?
We do.
Do you plant crops on it?
We do.
Do you plant crops in the area where the parking's going to go?
We have.
Okay. And I noticed that the parking is located what appears to be almost adjacent to Deal Road. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it's shown what? I mean, it's hard to tell from the sketch you've provided. How far off of the surface of Deal Road is the parking proposed to be located?
I don't have that exact distance. I mean, it's just an approximation. I mean, or at least in my mind, like if we were to be fortunate enough to move forward, we would get more detail, I guess, in the site plan, but I mean, it would be not parked up on the road. You know, you would come into our property, and then once you're in our property, you would basically enter into the field, into the lower portion of the field, and then we would have it staked off, you know, so that there's, you know, no one parking like up on the road. But I don't have that exact number.
Okay, who prepared this this drawing that you submitted?
So the plan, I guess the image that you're looking at is from CLSI. We drew in the details and did some measurements, like where the actual tent area would be, and then some of the measurements. I mean, we actually just went to like a commercial parking lot and just you know, tried to see what kind of, you know, normal distances between parking spaces. And if you figure, you know, if there was, you know, 80 people that needed to park, you would need, you know, 40 or 50 spaces. And that's kind of how we came up with the rough number.
Okay, so you took an orthographic photo and then you drew in the rest of this stuff that's shown on there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, where would people enter your property in order to get to the parking area?
So there's two entrances. So the way, if you're looking at, I'm sorry, I might grab a diagram. That works. So there's two entrances. The ideal entrance would be if you're looking at the image and you see where the barn's located, there's actually a second smaller building, like a pull through. You would enter by that. And then once you made, if you're going, I guess, west on Deal Road, you would make a left and enter in. And then once you went into our property, say 20 feet at most, you would kind of turn right and then pull into the field right there. The other way, just so you see the two, is if you were to follow that where you enter in there, if you were to follow that, it actually wraps around the barn and continues on and does like a semicircle right back to Deal Road. So there's really two entrances.
So one or both of those entrances would be the way people would get into this facility.
Yes.
And
Yes.
no, I can't see those from the orthographic plan, but I can see the circular driveway from the aerial photos you submitted, which I assume are in the record because Mr. Dixon referred to them. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so the parking would be, if referring to the aerial photos, the parking area would be in that green grass area along Deal Road, correct?
I mean, just so we're on the same page, the area that in the larger, like the orthographic plan, where the rectangle, as you referred to it. Yes. Mm-hmm. West of the entrance.
Now, that property is closest to Mrs. Guyton's property, isn't it? That parking area.
Well, yeah, I think just to be clear, when you referred to Miss Guyton, it's her and her daughter that, right? They both are on the deed. Is that, you mentioned two people?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yes, that is the closest, yes, the closest to their property.
And you're familiar with that property, are you not?
I am, yes, I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah, you've lived out there and for several years, and you're familiar with that property, right?
Yes, no one, it's just an empty lot, yes.
Okay. And do you know Mrs. Guyton's trying to market that for a single-family residential house?
I do. She requested a right away from us, yes.
Okay. And now Deal Road, describe Deal Road, please. What kind of road is that?
I guess just a Carroll County road.
Well, is it a Carroll County paved road?
Not at this time.
Okay. What is the surface of that road?
Gravel.
And how wide is it?
Think of roughly 22 feet, something like that. I'm not sure. I haven't measured the road.
Okay. Is it level, relatively level where it crosses your property? Or comes in front of your property?
I think so. I'm not sure where you're going with this. I mean, they split it from the top of the road there to the west. It does go down, but I mean, the entrance would be level where you would enter in.
And then right after the road passes your property and proceeds to front on Mrs. Guyton's property, it makes a pretty sharp turn to the right, does it not?
So you would go past
Yeah.
where,
It's not a very sharp turn, but yes, it does.
That's where
To
the
the
turn,
right.
that's the turn that's shown on the orthographic plan, correct?
yeah, that's their property. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And what's the outlet going in that direction to the next public road?
You could take that all the way to, I think it's Heiser. That road it is one of the roads that just turns into another road. So it's either Heiser or Brown, if you take Deal Road all the way to the end. Or I want to say about 2 miles down, you can make a left on Angel Road, which would take you out to 194.
Okay. So it's about 2 miles to Angel Road. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, something like that. Yep.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I get it. You didn't measure it, but I get that. Now, the tent you show, what kind of tent? That's a 45 by 100 foot tent. Is that correct?
So the reason we chose those dimensions is we looked at some of the, I guess I'll just say vendors or people that provide tents in the area, and that was the largest tent that we could see fitting in the area. So I just want to be clear too, if you look at some of our photos, it looks like there's some old dilapidated buildings and some trees in there and stumps, and there was firewood. That all has been cleaned up. So that actually is just a grass area as well, just to be, so people weren't thinking, what's that other stuff? That was part of what we talked about in the beginning that was falling down, and yes, so
Okay.
that area is cleaned up, but that was the largest tent. So, you know, we could put a 30 by 60 tent if, you know, they're only going to have 40 people potentially, and, you know, someone's going to have, you know, a retirement party for their wife or their husband, or, you know, if it's a small wedding, you know, you don't need something that large, but we went with that. So there was a, I guess just like the maximum that would be there.
Well, is that what you plan on doing, or is that maybe what you plan on doing?
So it would be dependent on what someone, so the way we look at it is, if we have, and I'm just going to make the scenario, we have 3 events a year. There's one in May, one in July, and one in August.
You're
first person-
just using that as a hypothetical, right?
Correct. We're 100% going to use a tent outdoors for the event, but the size is the hypothetical, because we'll actually pay somebody to come put the tent up. They'll put the tent up. When the event's over, they'll come back on Sunday and take the tent down, or Monday and take the tent down. So it'll be removed within a short period of time. It's just a temporary structure. We're not building any structures. There'll be no construction. This is just a piece of grass, I don't know how to say it, and a tent goes up and they have their event, and then they'll take it down.
Okay, so essentially you're applying to we now know to put up a temporary tent as large as 45 by 100. Is that what it amounts to?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I assume that tent will not be closed, will not be closed in, it will be open?
So I don't want to state something inaccurate. And the reason I'm saying that is, as we all know, in May and any time in the summer, it could rain. So if it's calling for a thunderstorm and you're going to have, you know, a bunch of money tied up and 60 people coming to your wedding and they want to have, you know, a side on the one side or 2 sides or all sides, I don't know, whatever is legal and is acceptable, then that is a possibility, just to be fair about it.
Well, will the client pick the tent, or will you pick the tent?
The client.
The
And they
client will
can-
pick the tent. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what control will you have over that process?
So we will only be giving them the, I guess, the people that are legally allowed to put up a tent and are approved, I guess, through the county or have a legitimate business. So then we'll say, here's like the 2 or 3 people that we would approve of. And then here's the different sizes up to 45 by 100. If you're having 50 people, you know, and I would talk to the tent vendor as well to say, hey, if you have 50 people, from a social distancing perspective, what would you need? And,
Well-
you know, as far as size,
Okay.
I would lean on their expertise, basically, the vendor.
Is that the business, is that generally the business model then, that the client, all you would do is give somebody permission to use your land for 5 hours or 8 hours or whatever? And then that person or that client would then get the caterer, get the tent, get a band, provide for any alcohol licensing they might need, et cetera. Is that the business model?
Basically, yes. I say basically because we're going to have preferred vendors. And for example, like we want to do everything by the book. So if somebody's like, oh, so-and-so is going to do the catering, like, do they have a license in Carroll County to be a caterer? Like, we're going to verify that stuff. But yes, we are basically providing a space for people to, within what we're allowed to do, have an event, whether it's a wedding, like I said, or a retirement party. It could be a birthday party. Like, there's I think in both their heads, like, you could have people just come and have a birthday party with 20 kids and put up a birthday cake and some tables.
Or any gathering that met your criteria could be a client, right?
As long as, I guess,
I could have a party, if I had a large group of friends, or maybe it's a fundraiser for a nonprofit. I could be a client, couldn't I?
So the only thing I would say is we would be selective. Like, to your point, I mean, you could have 40 21-year-old kids come out and want to have a rock band and a party, and I would say we appreciate your looking into us, but that's not what we're trying to accomplish here. So I understand what you're saying, but there is going to be some limitations from us.
No North Carroll high school graduation parties, huh?
No, sir.
All right. Now your Morgan Fisher, your wife described at the beginning how you had improved the property since you bought it, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get permits from the building permit department to do that work?
Yes. Oh, yes. The house actually, unfortunately, our plan was to restore the house, and basically the foundation was crumbling and it almost went down. So we actually pulled some of the material out, and that's what we built the chicken coop. We ended up having to take the house down, went through all the permits. So yes, like,
all right. Well, can you
paint the barn? I mean, we painted the barn.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think you need a permit for that yet.
No.
Don't worry, that's coming. Now, from this orthographic plan that you submitted, I'm having a hard time telling, what the inventory of structures on that property are. Can you help me and give me a little inventory of the structures that currently exist on that property, on your property?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, good. Okay.
So I don't know how well you can see, but let's see how we can describe this as best as possible.
Well, how about Mrs. Fisher, how about starting from where you've got the parking area drawn, the rectangle that says parking?
Sounds good.
And
Okay,
then go along Deal Road and kind of tell me from there if you could.
work to the right. Okay, so
Yeah,
the first building that's right there is still there. It has like a brown roof. If you move one more
Wait a
building
minute.
over,
What is that? A barn? Is that a barn?
it's like a,
It's like a running shed.
yeah, it's just kind of open. It's like a shell. It's nothing in it really per se.
Okay. What's the white thing? The white rectangle immediately next to it. What's that?
That is our barn.
Oh, that
It
is
is a
the.
bank barn. Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And then, yeah, you move one more spot over. It's very teeny tiny. That is our chicken coop.
Is that the
And-
little brown thing?
Yes.
So, is it up against the road or is it?
No, it's further. It's at the bottom of the white roof thing.
Yeah. That is my shed. I just have like potting stuff in it, like some tools, and
Okay.
I call it my she shed.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then the chicken coop is right after that up against the road.
Okay, I can't see that, but can you see that?
Yeah.
Can you see the chicken coop on the ortho?
It's very hard. So at one point it was overgrown and you could not see it. It looks like it's fallen over in this picture and you can't really see it, but we had cleaned that off and then we built a chicken coop.
How about
So-
how about the thing that's labeled Country Inn? What's that?
That is our home.
Okay, that's your house.
Yes,
Is that the house you built new, or did you rebuild another house, or how'd that house get there?
we built that house. Yes, so the picture of it, the one that's in the picture itself, is the old home that we had to tear down, unfortunately, and then we rebuilt a new home.
Okay, and so that's the Country Inn.
Yes,
Yeah, what part of that's the Country Inn? Is it all of it, or, I mean, you're gonna live there, right, with 3 kids?
yes.
Okay. So how's that gonna be a Country Inn?
So we have rooms available for people to stay if they would like. And that's pretty much,
Okay.
so if people would like to stay, they can stay.
So how many rooms, how many bedrooms does the house have?
Bedrooms?
Yeah.
There's three bedrooms.
Okay, and are they taken up by you and your, I mean, you know where I'm going here. How are people gonna stay in there? Where are they gonna stay in that house?
So this is a fair question. I mean, we've certainly had people stay here before. So, you know, there is rooms available for people to stay in. You know, they can stay on different floors. There is areas for people to, you know, basically rest their head, or they can stay in the lower level. We can allow them to stay in one of the bedrooms if they so choose. I mean,
Gotcha. I got it. So, but you really don't intend for people to use that as a bed and breakfast type thing, do you?
I think that it's whatever people would like. I mean, if they want to, we feel like if somebody would like to stay here, they're more than welcome, and we'll make them breakfast if they want us to. If they
Okay, so how about, so that's for one couple, right? Or one person?
it's up to them. I mean, I don't want to put a restriction or say something inaccurate. So, I mean, it's a Country Inn. They have a room available to them if they would like to stay here.
How about 3 rooms?
I think it's going to be, I'm sorry.
How about 3 rooms available to them if they'd like? I mean, it's my wedding, and I'd like my in-laws, future in-laws, to stay, and my parents to stay there.
If that's what they want, we'll make it happen.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, you're really truly going to say that, because it doesn't sound like that's practical, but that's your answer and you're sticking to it, right?
Yes.
Now, how do you propose, who's going to be responsible for handling the traffic on Deal Road when there's an event?
So I personally don't think there'll be a major need for like what's the word? Like when you're going to the ball game in Baltimore City where you need a police officer out there directing traffic. I mean, the way I look at it is, you know, I'm like all of us, we've gone to lots of weddings. Like, you come to the address, there's 2 entrances. We will have a sign out there to say, like, you know, parking, and they'll turn in, and we'll have, you know, cones set up to kind of, you know, in a sense, guide you. I will probably be out there, just to be fair about it. You know, it could be Morgan. It could be my eldest daughter as well. So one of us will be out there, just to answer your question. But to me, it's not like we need like a traffic director.
Okay. And so it's fair to say that you and your family intend to be present on the premises during all or most of these events, right?
All
of them. Okay. And you said in your testimony, or one of you did, that you're looking at May 1st to October 1st. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that a hard commitment, or would you do one on October 31st for Halloween if somebody wanted to pay the price?
I mean, that's a fair question. I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about it. Like, if, to your point, if somebody says, well, the weekend is, we want to do it on October 3rd, would we tell them no? I think it was a rough guesstimate. I don't know if, you know, if the board had a concern and wanted it to be a May 1st, October 1st, we would certainly abide by that. But I don't think it was a hard stop, at least in my mind. I mean, we're not going to do it in winter, but it's, yeah,
Okay.
it was a guesstimate.
Okay. How many people would be the maximum people that would be allowed to come on your property if you got this approval for one of these
Nine.
events?
99.
Okay, why is that?
That's my understanding from speaking to different departments. I guess just to kind of cover all of that, like my understanding is the maximum of events is 12 and the maximum amount of people is 99, and that includes us. So, you know, really the people can only have, you know, if you figure there's, you know, 3 people for catering and there's a photographer, I'm talking about a wedding specifically, and, you know, myself, my wife, I mean, really we're talking about like they could have maximum a wedding of like 90 people. But again, if it's like a retirement party or a birthday party, I mean, I've been to some birthday parties with never 100 people. So
Okay, so you're going to limit it to 99 or less.
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me? And you're going to limit it to 12 events per year or less. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay. Now, how are you going to enforce that when the client calls up, you're going to say, hey, 99, or maybe with your family, it's 93, right?
Mhm.
Did you say they count you in that 99?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
you're going to limit it to 93 or people. You're going to tell the client that, right?
Yes.
How are you going to enforce that?
You know, I trying to be fair about it. You're going to have to do some sort of head count, but I think the way I would look at it is these people will come up with a list, and this is again on the maximum side of things. I mean, I don't think every event or party is going to be a wedding at 99 people. I just don't think that. So if you do go there, they're going to come up with a list. They're going to have to figure out, like with the catering people, you know, we're going to have, you know, they're going to tell them we're going to have, you know, 80 people and we need this much chicken or whatever they're going to have. So things like that will help us kind of guide them through the process. Tables and chairs. Right. Yeah.
Okay. If somebody wants to have a wedding, will they be allowed to have entertainment?
Yes.
Will they be allowed to have alcohol?
We won't provide it, but if they go through the proper process, I mean, yes, yes.
Okay. And where will they go to the bathroom?
We will have, and that was another part of like the economic, we will have a temporary spot-a-pot, so you have a handicap potentially and a regular spot-a-pot that would be dropped off, you know, the day before and then removed. I think we talked to Hughes and a couple other people. I can't remember the other one, but yeah, it's like a 3-day process. They drop it off the day before the event and then they come pick it up the next day, or I think the Monday. So it could sit there for, I guess, 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Is your, excuse me? I'm sorry.
And they would, that's okay. And they would remove it. That's all. It would just be there all summer.
So the traffic that's associated with this use would be the day of the event, people would come and they do their thing, right? Prior to the event, there would be deliveries of spot-a-pots, etc., right?
Mm-hmm.
Subsequent to the event, there would be pickups of spot-a-pots, etc., right?
Correct.
Okay. Prior to the event, there would be delivery. The tent people would show up, right?
That's correct.
Okay, after the event, the tent people would show up to take it down, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Any alcohol or caterer would show up whenever they needed to prep for the event, right?
Day of.
Sure.
Do you intend to have cooking facilities available, or would it all be off-site catered?
Off-site.
Offsite.
All right. Is there a dump located on the property you own?
Not that I'm aware of.
Where you know what I mean when I say dump, where people have dumped old stuff like washing machines, barrels, wood, trash, etc.
I don't know of a dump.
Okay, gotcha. Bear with me one second. I think that's close to the end for me. Yeah, I believe you said, or I believe Mrs. Fisher said, that it's purely an outside event. Nobody's going to be allowed inside any of the buildings except for your house if they want to stay there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, with regard to the parking area, what natural vegetation exists to screen that parking area from Deal Road, if any?
There is I'm just gonna guess, like a 4-foot wide strip of grass right now, and then there's a couple cedar trees up around kind of the end of the property. I guess closer towards where you mentioned that turn would be on Deal Road, just on that end. It's kind of just really, actually, I planted in there as when people come around, the lights will shine down towards the house. So it's just a little barrier, but there's really, there's not a whole lot. I mean,
Yeah, the ortho
think I
doesn't
mentioned-
show any, does it? The ortho doesn't show any of it, does it?
I'm not sure. Either, let's see.
We'll take a look at it.
It doesn't look like it. I don't know. We planted them small, but it does not look like it, no.
Okay. Could someone physically, I know you're not planning on having an entrance adjacent to the parking area, but if someone wanted, could you take a pickup truck and drive off Deal Road and get into that parking area? Is it level there?
I mean, there's a gutter, if you will, but I mean, I guess if you're asking me if I had a pickup truck and I wanted to, ram into the field, I mean, I could definitely do it. Yes.
Maybe do it. Okay. So there's a drainage gutter that really serves to support Deal Road between the the gravel surface and your parking area, correct?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you. That's all the questions I have at this time. I would like to note that, I don't know, is Mrs. Guyton or Mrs. Marcus on the call now?
Yes, we're here.
Okay, and so they are my clients. They're on the call, and that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Does anyone else from the community have any questions of the Fisher's testimony? And remember, this is questions of their testimony. You'll have the opportunity to give your own testimony a little bit later.
This is Chris Tomlinson. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to comment on the application. I imagine at the end of the meeting, I think was the appropriate time, but I did not have any questions for the Fishers.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tomlinson. Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none. Board members, questions of the Fisher's testimony? Mr. Simmons? Dr. Dunkelberger.
Thank you. Will you have any employees?
I guess other than us, no.
Okay, and will there be any signage out by the road?
Yes.
And what year did you graduate from high school?
2002.
In
Okay.
2001.
What?
I was 2001. He was 2002.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions, board members? Ms. Eckert?
Yes, please. Could you just tell me a little bit more about where in your 3-bedroom home with, you said you had 3 children? Where specifically you would actually accommodate guests if they wanted to stay? I mean, I know that when you initially presented your case, you indicated that there would be nobody in the house as a result of your concerns regarding COVID, or excuse me, nobody in any of the buildings as a result of your concerns regarding COVID. And it's not completely clear in my mind where you would accommodate guests in your home so that they would be perhaps separate from your family, your children. So if you could clarify that, that would be great.
Sure. So, I guess the first thing is I try to be flexible. So I thought of, if someone came to us and said, we had these folks out of town, or, grandparents or whoever, whatever, and they want to stay there, in my mind, and we've talked about this lightly, if it came down to somebody wanted to basically be here for all the rooms, in a sense, something similar to like an Airbnb, we would allow that to happen. That would not be the norm, but we would let that happen. So we basically go somewhere else and they could use the place. But in a more, I think, straightforward answer is there is a room in the lower level of our home that actually has a entrance to the outside that they could stay in. And that's I think the more viable solution. So you'd be on a separate floor. This is a new house, so it has sprinklers, even though when you drive by, we try to make it similar to what was there, but it has sprinklers. Again, there's an outdoor entrance on the lower level, and they could be separate from us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Works.
Yes, I have a question about Deal Road. On my site visit, I did notice Deal Road is unpaved. It did appear to be in good condition from that standpoint, but it was obviously a very narrow road. When you were asked by Mr. Schaefer about the road, I believe I heard you say it's 20 or 22 feet wide. That would be your estimate. That road didn't appear to be any wider than 14 feet to me. I mean, would you disagree with that? And 14 feet, there's a question there whether that provides adequate width for vehicles to pass each other. So could you elaborate on that?
So I understand what you're saying, and there is some tighter spots along the road. I guess my thought was probably at the wider spots. The road definitely has narrower and wider. I mean, it's not like a paved road where it's static the whole way. So I acknowledge your point. I guess the one benefit in my mind to the property is that we are the last property on Deal Road that connects to Sells Mill. So I feel like the road is wider. Again, maybe it's not 22 feet. That's very fair, but I feel that there is enough room for people to safely pass each other from our entrance to our property to Sells Mill Road. But I acknowledge what you're saying. Like, it might not be 22 feet or 20 feet at every point. Like, that's fair.
Well, my observation was that Deal Road might be adequate to serve the existing uses along the road, but really question whether it's suitable for a banquet facility. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Simmons, you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay, at this point, does anyone want to provide testimony of their own concerning this case?
Hi, this is Chris Tomlinson. I assume this is the appropriate time to just kind of make a statement.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the board, it is great to be with you today, over the phone, of course. I'm here to speak in favor of the Fishers application for conditional use. As I stated, my name is Chris Tomlinson. I'm a member of the county's Historical Preservation Commission, which hears similar requests, but just for the village of Uniontown, and a former member of Manchester's Board of Zoning Appeals. So I also find myself in your shoes, and I can sympathize with all of you just a little bit. So I speak in favor of this application, not just because I've known the Fishers most of my life, but because I'm incredibly impressed with what this family's been able to do with this property. And this isn't just their property. As they've stated, this is their home. I first visited their new home in 2018, not long after they purchased it. This poor farm was really just a shell of its former self and was in much need of some love and some major improvements. And what the Fishers have been able to do, and what they still have in their plans, is nothing short of amazing. They have rehabilitated and have given new life to what was really a decrepit, broken down farm. They now have some livestock, as they stated. They're growing fruit, vegetables, flowers, plants, and they've been able to take their products to local farmers markets. The Fishers, what they've done is really, they've added one more operable farm to Carroll County. And what the Fishers are requesting today for conditional use, they're not trying to change the landscape or drop some warehouse or shopping center on their property. What they're requesting this conditional use for is because, like they've said, they want to host small events on a select basis on their farm. In no way does this conditional use take away from keeping Carroll County beautiful or rural. In fact, I would say it helps preserve a farm that up until recently was all but forgotten. Mr. and Mrs. Fisher, they both grew up in Carroll County, and they decided as adults to not just stay in Carroll County, but to raise their family here. And they also decided to take on the endeavor of resurrecting a farm, which I'm sure, as all of you can imagine, is not very easy. But by granting this application, you're really helping a family who is contributing towards Carroll County's contributing towards keeping Carroll County agricultural for decades to come. And with that, I speak in favor of approving their request. Thank you.
Okay, just stay right there, Chris. Does anyone have any questions of his testimony? Mr. Schaefer.
Yeah, Mr. Tomlinson, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning.
Mr. Tomlinson, if this application is approved, how will it affect you in the peaceful enjoyment of your home?
Over here in Manchester, it will not affect me too much as not an adjacent property owner.
Do you own any property on Deal Road, or do you live on Deal Road?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for Mr. Tomlinson.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else from the public have any questions of Mr. Tomlinson's testimony? Okay, board members, any questions of Mr. Tomlinson's testimony? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Tomlinson. I see we have identified as caller 2. Do you want to make any comments?
those are my clients. I believe that's Mrs. Guyton and Mrs. Marcus, and they are content to have me register their objection to this request.
Yeah, but I think we have someone else that's caller too. I have them. I think I have them as admin on my screen. So caller 2, could you identify yourself? Okay, very, very good. Does anyone want to provide any testimony at this point? Ms. Johnson, do you want to provide any testimony at this point or no? Okay, thank you. Seeing no further public participation, presentation of testimony and evidence is now closed and summations are in order. The applicant is first, so that means you get to go first, the Fisher family, and then interested parties and protestants. So that would be you, Mr. Schaefer. So Fisher, so you can go ahead and give your summation comments if you would like.
I guess I would first say just thank you everybody for taking the time out of your day to at least hear us out, and whatever the outcome is, we appreciate it. The only other comment I would say is the objection that Mr. Schaefer is bringing up has no one living on that property. There's no home there. So I think the question that Mr. Schaefer presented to Chris, which is how much would it affect you living in Manchester, I would say, you know, I would ask that same question with there being no home on the property that, you know, I guess is objecting to this. How much does it affect, you know, your client, Mr. Schaefer, when they don't live there? And that's all. Again, thank you everybody for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Fisher. Mr. Schaefer, do you have any summation comments?
Yes, thank you. You know, it's ironic to me that Mr. Fisher would make that last comment, because he knows exactly why there's nobody living next door to him. It's because Mrs. Guyton cannot get electric service, which needs a connection through a small part of his property. However, putting that irony aside, it's easy to sympathize with Mr. and Mrs. Fisher. They present a somewhat compelling, well, sympathetic type case. They just want to use their property. However, uses like this, banquet, event facilities, as the board knows, have a potential to have a significant effect on neighboring property owners, the traffic network, etc. This is not like a one-chair beauty shop or even a contractor's equipment storage yard with 10 pieces of equipment. And so it seems to me that the applicants for such a use, and by the way, this is, I think, what, 8 or 9 acre piece of ground. This is not a large parcel in the ag district. But people that make these kind of applications have an obligation to present to the board information that allows the board to, in good conscience, evaluate the case and make a decision. In this case, what has been presented is a bare bones I don't mean this negatively, but an amateur, I get it. I get it. They don't have, they're trying to get into this with a low investment. But to present this sketch that you can't even hardly read, no traffic testimony whatsoever, even the barest bones of average daily trips, the width of the road, the surface of the road. I had to ask about it. That doesn't fulfill, in my opinion, their obligation to the board to present a case that gives the board, they have an obligation on, and we all know that there's a favorable legal standard for conditional use applications. It's the Schultz v. Pritz, right? But here's a key aspect of Schultz v. Pritz that doesn't get quoted often, and that is the applicant has an obligation to make a prima facie case that shows they comply with the standards of the ordinance. One of those standards is traffic safety and conditions listed in your list of conditions. Now, I'm not going to dwell on the fact that it's almost like the elephant in the room, which is, it's not a country inn. It's an event facility that you can get into for a $0 investment. Let the client do the stuff and you just collect money. And I'm not saying they won't do it responsibly. They seem like good people and they've got a history of improving the property. But for instance, the standards for country inn in section 7C of the applicable code says parking shall be provided on site and screened by natural vegetation from public streets and adjoining properties. It's clear that this application does not meet that standard. And that's not posited as a maybe or anything like that. It says you're supposed to have it. And the definition of country inn is the reason, and listen, I get this because as you all know, I represent people that want country inns. And this requirement of having the room is something that people have to squeeze around to meet. Well, this squeeze around just doesn't, that dog doesn't hunt. There's not going to be a room available. Now, and let's be real here. Hi, I'd like to do an event there and the wedding party would like to stay. What are your accommodations like? Well, we'll put one of the kids out of the bed. No, nobody's going to stay there. And that's part of the definition of the country inn. So while sympathetic and I think it just doesn't pass muster and you should not vote to authorize it. This is not something that you should say, well, we'll let the site plan people worry about all that. And now let's talk about the peaceful enjoyment of people in their home. My client owns property right next door, wants to sell it for a single family residence. Ask yourselves, and this is a 9-acre piece of ground, the parking's over there. They're going to have up to 99 people there on a July evening. Outdoor music. Yes, if the bride wants it, that's what we're having. Porta pots. Well, okay, alcohol. Some people that drink alcohol sometimes don't wait in line for porta pots. I know that from experience. And so this will, and unlike many areas of the ag zone, which is the Schultz v. Pritz standard, is this going to have an adverse effect here above and beyond? Okay. This one is on Deal Road on a small parcel next to other small parcels that are slated for residential development. It's shaped such that a large part of the operation is right next to Deal Yes, this will have adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated. And Mrs. Guyton and Mrs. Marcus are here to object to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. The hearing and record of this case is now closed, and in accordance with the Open Meetings Act of Maryland, the board will now consider the case. Board members, who wants to go first?
I'm not persuaded this is a country inn. I agree with the comments Mr. Schaefer made, but in addition, there's a definition of country inn in the regulations, and it's one sentence. Any dwelling in which rooms are rented to paying guests on an overnight basis with meals served daily. I haven't heard anything about meals being served daily. So I'm not persuaded, or at least the applicant has not persuaded me that this is going to be a bona fide country inn. In order to get a banquet facility, you need to be a country inn. So one follows the other. I'm also concerned about Deal Road. For a dirt road, the surface was in good condition, but again, it's very narrow. In my opinion, it's a substandard road now. And it'd be extremely substandard as far as accommodating a banquet facility.
Oops. Thank you, Mr. Wirtz. Board members, one comment as chair. We have in the past limited number of events. We have limited the time of events as far as the cutoff time in the evening. And we have also limited the number of people that could be at these wedding venues. So just, those are things that we have done, and we need to look at 15807 D7E because it seems like the Fishers have intentions of more than wedding venues, and we need to address that. It says, in addition to providing meals as allowed here under, the BZA may authorize a country inn to provide facilities and catering for banquets, weddings, receptions, reunions, and similar one-day events. These events shall not be open to the public. So I know we have in the past limited the activities to wedding receptions or wedding/wedding receptions only. So just think about that in your deliberations. Okay, who wants to go next? Dr. Dunkelberger.
One observation before we go further. I don't know how many of these country inn requests we've had, but I can't think of one that wasn't difficult. The whole country inn concept is very hard to work with. And I think as we talk about this further, that's something we need to keep in mind.
Dr. Dunkelberger, I wholeheartedly agree. And I think with the code that we're dealing with, it's extremely outdated, needs to be updated with certain restrictions put on it. However, I'm assuming that will be done because we're in the process of updating the master plan in the conservation and ag zone. And I would hope that the planning department does look at this, because it is, we have seen it be very burdensome to prove that there is a room for rent. And this is one of those cases. Okay, Ms. Eckert, would you like to make comments?
Thank you, Mr. Vail. I'm in agreement with Mr. Wirtz. I'm concerned that the standard for a country inn has not been met in this instance. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I feel like that there is not a cohesive plan per se in effect yet, as to what exactly would be happening on this property with regard to, you know, number of people, size of events, recognizing that it would be a fluid, you know, a fluid situation depending on what the clients were looking for. The smaller size of the parcel concerns me. I know that we typically, you know, view these things or have, you know, have in past cases looked at these as favorable, but this location is right along Deal Road. You know, again, and I also agree with Mr. Wertz that it's appears to be a substandard road. So I have some concerns that I'm just not comfortable with yet saying that I would vote in favor of it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eckert. I'm going to go ahead and give my comments. I see Mr. Simmons is not at his microphone. I have a lot of concerns. I was in total shock when I did my site visit on my own on a rainy day and didn't realize that Deal Road was one of the few county roads that is not paved, even a portion of it. And I drove it all the way to the other end, and even though there was no sun, I actually found my way home. I've got concerns about it, and I realize that they're only about 100 yards roughly from a hard surface road. And I looked at the property, and I know that we have in the past turned down wedding venue events when you're looking at the proximity to existing homes. And I really question in the way it's situated, what type of boundaries what kind of conditions we could put on this approval that would lessen the impact on the neighborhood as far as wedding sounds, you know, bands, amplified speeches, and everything that goes with it. And I'm also in agreement about the rooms for rent. We've seen a lot of others where there are dedicated rooms that are available for rent, and it doesn't seem that this would have a dedicated room. Again, we're dealing with the ordinances that are enacted as of today, and our discussions, I think, have indicated some of the inadequacies in the code, and hopefully these things will be addressed so that we don't have to make these determinations. The wedding venue is a huge hole in our zoning code, in my opinion. So with that, Mr. Simmons, would you like to make any comments?
Well, yes, I would. I agree that the problem under discussion is not the presentation nor the couple that's making the presentation, but the inadequacy of our code. However, in the past 10 years that I've sat here, we've probably had 5 of these considerations for wedding venue every year. I don't remember turning anyone down. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bale.
Yes, we did on Sullivan Road.
Lisa, you're shaking your head. I think that means I'm wrong. You remember something that we've denied.
The one that comes to my mind quickly is the one that Mr. Bale just referenced, the one on Sullivan Road that was on a smaller lot, not similarly positioned to this one, but smaller lot size with neighbors within fairly close proximity.
Well, I rode up and down this road. I didn't find one neighbor. I think any consideration calling this a neighborhood is a misnomer. I think it's ridiculous. These people have purchased a farm. They're very upfront about their intention. Mrs. Fisher lost her employment, is looking to make income. That's fine. She got 3 kids at home. Why not take advantage of the farm? I'm inclined to say we've granted many of these with the same basic code and the same basic restrictions imposed by the code, not by the folks. So I don't see the roadway as Dennis does. I think if you've got 40 cars coming in and out over a 30-minute period of time, I think that road's going to be able to handle that. I can't imagine that there's going to be a massive traffic jam. I don't see any other residents on the road who are going to be inconvenienced. And I certainly don't think the road itself is going to be destroyed because of maybe 8 events a year max would be my guess is what's going to happen, even if that. I don't see the validity of that dissent. So I'm going to vote in favor.
And
Dick,
oh, sorry.
I absolutely agree with your analysis because.
You talking to me, Gary?
What?
Are you talking about my analysis?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because every one of these that I remember has been kind of loosey-goosey. And it's a code. So I to vote yes.
I agree. I agree that oftentimes it's not nailed down specifically, but my concern, Mr. Simmons, you used the word, it was your guess that would be what was going to happen. I think my big concern in this instance is we are guessing as to what's going to happen on this property. Is it going to be 8? Is it going to be 10? Is it going to be 40 people? Is it going to be 100 people? I think what I'm saying is in order, recognizing that we typically are lenient with these kinds of things because there's so much uncertainty with regard to this request. I think there should be, if I were going to be inclined to grant this request, I think it would have to have a lot of stipulations and conditions on it. And I haven't heard anybody maybe suggest what that might be.
I think Melvin was hinting at some conditions. Were you not, Melvin?
Well, that wasn't part of the presentation, and it's kind of interesting. In past presentations concerning wedding venues, the applicant has offered a limit or a range of activities to be held, and cut off dates as far as in the spring or in the summer, what months it would be limited to, and also the hours of operation. Because as we have found out in some wedding venues that were operating without our approval and then came in for approval, the biggest concern was the noises associated with a wedding venue and the hours of operation. So those things were not addressed. We can address those in our discussions here to form a motion. I'm not really sure what the applicant's intentions are here. We have limited some wedding venues to less events per month than there were weekends. So if they were open for, let's just call it let's just call it 15 weekends. We limited them to a number less than that. I'm not sure whether that fits into the Fishers plan, because we didn't see a formal plan. We saw more ideas. And if they're going into the birthday party, retirement party thing, I could see it being used maybe more than once a weekend. And I'm not really sure the intensity of the use at this point.
I thought I did hear those. I heard May to October. I heard 10 events and 99 people max.
I heard all those numbers.
Well, do we hear hours of operation?
No,
Not
we did
past
not.
10. We did not. No, not past 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. Excuse me.
And again, those are conditions that we can put on this. I didn't hear anything offered either by Mr. Schaefer requesting any limitations or the Fishers. They were saying up to 10 events, but it wasn't, we will have 10 events between this. It was how do I want to say it? It wasn't de facto. It was more, this is what we think we want. So if we want to go with 10 events and limit it, then let's have that discussion so that somebody can get a motion on the floor.
I'm going to take a hazardous guess at what the Fishers, excuse me. Clark, you're not running this business, are you? Didn't think so. What the Fishers might be willing to say, that's fine too. I'm going to say 10 events a year with a maximum of 99 people, stipulated that bathroom facilities be porta pots. Alcohol would be through a licensed caterer. Food would be through a licensed caterer. Size of the tent, no more than 45 to 100 feet. Time of the event and days of the week. I'm going to say weekends only, because that's my guess as to what you think. I don't know that, but that's my guess. And up to but not beyond 10 p.m. on a given event. Could I see a shake of a head, at least, from the Fishers? And I got a smile. That's great.
Okay, was that in the form of a motion? I didn't hear your first couple of words. Was that in the form of a motion, Mr. Simmons?
No, but I would make the motion that we approve this. And I can't emphasize enough, the problem with this presentation is not with the presenters. It's with our code. It needs to change. We don't change the code. We live with the code that we've got. And we've wrestled with this time after time after time. So I would say, I move that we approve this request for a wedding venue with the limits and conditions that I just discussed.
Before we get a second, Mr. Simmons, but wait a minute, Dr. Dunkelberger.
You just got a second.
Yeah, okay, but what I want to know is, would you be amicable to also including that no permanent structure be put up where the tent would be erected?
I don't think there's any intention of a permanent structure.
Okay.
None whatsoever. I believe these people.
Okay, and that's what because I know what has occurred. I know what I've seen at different wedding venues, There's a portable tent then, and there is a slab of concrete there. And I just wanted to make sure that we have that in our conditions.
So
Are you
moved.
answering that, Dr. Dunkelberger?
Gary?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Yes.
That's 3 yeses.
Very good.
I second that motion.
So do we have any discussion on the motion? Mr. Work.
Could I interject something?
Please
That's
do,
come up in
Tim.
other cases? Does the 10 p.m. beyond 10 p.m. mean that the band stops playing at 10 p.m. or everyone's got to be gone by 10 p.m.?
I don't know how you legislate this is the end of the event, but I certainly think when the band stops and the bar closes, the event quickly ends thereafter, at least the ones that I've gone to. So I would say yes. 10 p.m. restriction on food, drink, entertainment. I see a shake of 2 heads. They're in the positive.
I agree.
Am I right, Mr. and Mrs. Fisher? They're saying yes.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Houston, does that answer the question for legal sufficiency?
That's fine.
Okay. Ms. Eckert, I see you have a comment, and then I'll get to you, Dennis.
Yeah, before we vote on this, I would just like to go on the record as saying I don't doubt what Mr. and Mrs. Fisher are saying either. I do agree with Mr. Simmons and Dr. Dunkelberger. My concern, again, on the motion on the table is we just effectively speculated what we believe that they want.
I just asked them if they would concur with what I just stated, and I got 2 positive head shakes and a thumbs up. That means they concur with what I said. Do you want them to state that? Mr. and
No, that's
Mrs.
not-
Fisher, would you say, yes, I agree with what Mr. Simmons just stipulated?
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree to what Mr. Simmons stipulated.
We
Thank
agreed
you.
to the restriction.
Thank you.
Does that help, Melvin?
Yes. Okay. Mr. Works.
Yeah, I want a clarification of the motion. I heard the wedding venue mentioned in the motion, but I didn't hear anything about the board is approving a country inn. Did I miss that or not? They're
No, I
applying
think
for it. Maybe I missed it.
Dennis, I'm sorry, this is so awkward. I have to look at you on a screen to see when you stop. There's a delay in your voice by about 5 seconds on the screen, believe it or not. So I misspoke. I should have said, instead of wedding venue, conditional use for a country inn and banquet facility. Let that be the motion. I think that's appropriate, Dennis.
Okay, Ms. Eckert, anything else? Any other questions or comments? Mr.
Did you
Works?
accept Gary's second to the motion?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
All 3. Hey, Mr. You have any? I see your mic's on. You have any further comments about the motion?
Well, just comments on the motion itself. Yeah, again, I'm not persuaded this is a country inn. The definition to me is very clear. I'd like to state the applicant has not persuaded me that this is a bona fide country inn. I understand there's reservations about whether the road is adequate or not. But if it doesn't comply with the definition of country inn, I think that's a major problem.
Okay, board members, any final comments? Going once, twice? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with quite a few conditions that I'm assuming that Mr. Dixon has recorded. So with that, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. Okay, the motion fails. So with that, our oral decision will become final upon a written decision, which will be issued within 30 days unless otherwise extended by the board. And the board's decision may be appealed by filing a petition for judicial review with the clerk of the circuit court for Carroll County in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 200, Title 7 of the Maryland Rules of Procedure. The appeal must be filed within 30 days of the date of the board's written decision. Thank you very much for your attention during this hearing, and this hearing is concluded. Board members, stay on. We have a little bit of business to attend to.
Thank you.
This is officially our December hearing, and according to our bylaws, Mr. Dixon, I actually read them over the holiday, and we are to elect officers. I don't know why we always did it February or March or April or sometimes August, but we're to elect officers. So at this point, I will open up the floor for nominations for chair.
I nominate Melvin Vale as chair and Lisa Eckert as vice chair.
Half of that was okay.
Pardon me? What did you say, Lisa?
I like the first half of that. I'll second the second or the first half of that.
I'll second. Never mind.
And honestly,
I'll second.
I can't disagree with that unless we flip-flop who's chair and vice chair, because according to our bylaws, I think Mr. Wertz is still an alternate member and he can't assume that position. And we have two guys that are soon going to be on the Dinosaur Club for the BZA.
I resent that.
So, okay, so we have a motion on the floor to retain the chair and the vice chair for the year 2021. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no.
Can I bring up another matter for the board?
Mr. Dixon, since it's you and it's the new year, yes, we will allow you.
Okay, we haven't had a live hearing for since, I don't know, March or February. But if you recall, I like the last time we had hearings, I allowed Joe to send you all the exhibits in advance. If you recall, when we have live hearings, you don't see the exhibits before the hearing. at the hearing, I read what's in the file and then the file is passed down. I know there's been some decisions when the file wasn't passed down to the last person and the hearing had been concluded. So I just don't want you to remember that's how it used to be. We will get back to that, but getting things in advance, I only did that when that hearing was complicated and I thought it might be helpful, but you're not necessarily going to get all the exhibits before a hearing. But that's how it used to be, and then we may go back to that eventually, but I'm just saying you haven't in the past, you haven't, even for these virtual hearings, gotten all exhibits before the hearing. So don't expect to get everything before the hearing.
No, Mr. Dixon. And I know in some of these more complicated cases where you have attorneys representing each side, there have been late additions to the file, as it would be if we were doing live hearings. But I don't think
that's
it's
correct.
I don't
They
think
don't have, no side has to present anything to us before. There's no requirement that they have to have all their evidence to us before the hearing. They could do just what we do for live hearings or for in-person hearings. Give us everything at that time. So I just want to remind you guys of that that's permissible. That used to be how it was all the time.
Okay, and so we're meeting legal sufficiency that there's no there in the process that we're using now. Is that correct?
Yes. I just wanted to keep you on board. I thought it would be helpful in those cases last month to have everything you could get, because they weren't typical cases, and there were, I guess, 2 attorneys involved, so, or at least 1 attorney involved in them. So I thought it would be helpful.
Yes, and kudos to Matt and Chris for making sure that the exhibits were posted. I mean, holy Toledo, they were posting the exhibits before the attorney was even he was anticipating what the attorney was wanted up as the next exhibit. So I think we've adapted to that and done a very good job there. So is everybody comfortable with the, I mean, as comfortable as we can be with these remote virtual meetings? Okay, very good. Thank you for your attention today, and we will see you on the 20th of January for our 3 site visits. One of the cases has been removed. It's a kennel up on Broadbeck Road. So I think that's our 3rd case of the day. So that will not be heard. Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
All right. Thank you.